David. Thank you. Rosina gave you a picture of her. I haven't done that, so it's not me. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, David. I am a clinical nutritionist, and to me that's about looking at the whole person. So we don't all eat the same, we don't all start out the same. We all have different needs. So yeah, it keeps it interesting because everybody I see is different. And one size truly does fit nobody. So I first had this expressed to me in this way when my daughter was being put into a hospital gown that was this big and she was this big. So, you know, and it's true for what we're given to start with, but it's also true for what needs we might have going forward. So, you know, every single thing about us as individual, even siblings that we see in twins, they have different experiences of life and stresses, and you know, their genes might be the same, but they have all sorts of different things that can then affect what they eat, how their digestion works. Yeah, just everything about them can be different. So it always amazes me that yeah, siblings can be so chalk and cheese. So part of what I do to start with is going through all of that with people, just talking to them about, you know, how was their birth, were they breastfed, and then were there any childhood illnesses, and keeping going through their life story. So for kids it takes a lot shorter, half an hour is probably plenty. For an adult it's a good hour to get enough information about people to know where we go to next. And I encourage you to know, you know, what is it about your child that makes them who they are, and, you know, if you're not finding the answers, seek more specifics, because it's often the people that haven't got the answers through the mainstream system that are coming to private clinics, whether it's nutrition or chiropractic or, yeah, poos and wees nurses. So I used to talk about the digestive system as a village, and you needed somebody from every kind of background, but I actually think of it now as your health centre. So Hippocrates said many moons ago that all disease starts in the gut, and I actually turn that around and say that's also the place where we can look at for healing to begin as well. So, you know, we've got lots of different departments, and each part of our digestive system has different functions, and also a lot of ways that it can malfunction. The piece that's obvious to us is how we chew, what our teeth and tongue are doing, what our mouth is doing. I'll bring in a few other bits later on, but you know, we might get a few gurgles or a bit of pain, but we often don't really know what else is going on inside. So it's partly my job to go through all of those stages and see where does, you know, do you get pain up here or further down in your stomach, or is it just when you're pooing or peeing? And we've got lots of messengers. So Rosina's talk about how the brain and the spinal column's working. We've got those messengers, but we've also got chemical, electrical, hormonal, enzymes, so many things, so many pathways that can get confused, or when we're stressed, all of this shuts down. It's a non-urgent function. All of our stress systems are designed to run away from the danger, but that's not not the stress that we have these days generally. So, you know, how can we just calm that whole system down so it works better? Whoop, that's right. We've got support organisations, so the brain, you know, it's not part of our digestive system, but it's so important because of that stress factor. Right up the top of this, sorry, I should have introduced, this is Nick Selleck's Awkward Yeti, does fantastic cartoons. So a lot of these organs are always in battle with each other. So the tongue's telling the brain, oh no, it's fine, we can have more, and the stomach's going, oh no, please don't. The heart in the middle has a butterfly with it because it's always going, oh, let's go over there. And the brain's trying to get you focused again. So all of these things need to work together, but they don't always. Yeah, and what we haven't got pictured here is the skin and the bones and the muscles, and even those are feeding in messages back to our digestive system of how we need to work. So, and this is your health workers, so your microbiome. And when I was studying 10 years ago, it was kind of on the fringe, you know, wasn't talked about a lot. And now it's like everywhere you look, people are talking about your good gut bugs. So 5 or 6 years ago, they were talking about, we've got over 1,000 different species of bacteria in our gut. I looked in a study last year was over 3,500, so it's exponential. But I like this picture because it's including the mouth. We have a really strong oral microbiome, and that's, you know, been found to be not only important for our digestive system, but also important for our heart health. Yeah, and I do see a lot of people getting burning tongue or a lot of gum disease, that would change their microbiome in their mouth, and, you know, the pain goes away or they can digest better. Our skin's got another microbiome that's not so important on today's one, but actually often kids with constipation or diarrhea often have eczema, so it's another good just way of checking in there. The urogenital microbiome is really important, especially if you've got bedwetting, but also constipation, diarrhea. It's just so integral. So often we look after the gut microbiome, and by doing that, we can look after the urogenital one as well. So if you think about how often mums might have thrush, that can be passed on to kids. It can set up our whole taste for food and many, many issues with that. So yeah, if you think about, we're one big ecosystem, and we need to find that right balance and a diversity. So, you know, if you thought about a health centre that had all surgeons and no cleaners, where would we be? You know, it'd be pretty messy. And if you've got a health centre, you need your key performance indicators, which in this case are your poo and wee. They're the visible things, but we also look at what else is going on for your well-being, your resilience to infection, and that could be digestive infection or skin infection, all sorts of things. So to start with, we look at stimulating the digestive system. And as I said, stress shuts it down. So just taking some time around sitting with your food, not eating on the run, and the same goes for kids. The sight of food, the smell of food, the visual pleasure of it, you know, that all helps our digestive system kick in and become a little bit more switched on and ready to eat. We have a big vagal nerve that connects our brain to our gut. It's two-way traffic messaging with that. Humming and singing and just being outside, all those sorts of things can help us tune into that vagal nerve and make things work a bit better. Taking time with your kids to eat, and, you know, having interaction, making food time fun rather than a stressful thing. You know, you will eat your boiled cabbage. We've probably all had those kind of experiences. Just remembering to chew. So if we have all the same, you know, smoothies, no texture, and we don't need to chew, that will actually slow our digestion down as well. Eating together, so our kids learn from us. So if we're all eating a normal meal, then they're going to take out some cues from that. Not always, and it doesn't last for long. You know, by the time they become teenagers, so we're going, you're doing that, then I'm not. So yeah, make the most of it while we're the cool kids. And the bottom, the stagnation for digestion, is that distress, anxiety, rushing things. You know, we've got to get to swimming or whatever it is. So taking time over food is really important. Constant grazing is quite an issue. So We have a big migratory motor complex that happens when our digestive system's empty, when our stomach's empty. And it's called the digestive housekeeper. So it does the big sweeping movements. And so if we're constantly snacking in between meals, we never actually get to that state. And distraction. So if we've got TVs on, screens on, while we're eating, it's very easy just to either constantly eat and not know when we're full, or to just, you know, for kids, they're so glued to a screen that they don't actually focus on eating at all. So I guess this whole thing, you know, food is one of the things that we can feel really judged around. And I don't think there is a perfect diet. There isn't a perfect, you know, it's about finding what works for you. But, you know, everybody's going to find a different way for them. But, you know, slowing down can make a huge difference. Just taking time. And if you've got that time around meal times, around food, then think of the savings you've got later with, you know, you're not rushing to the doctors, you're not having sick days off with your kids, those sorts of things. Did I skip one? Yes. So this was taken from a study called First Encounters of the Microbial Kind. So again, we can feel judged as mums, you know, when did we get pregnant? How healthy were we then? What was the birth like? All of those sorts of things. And yes, we do build up some of our microbiome for a baby with a natural birth, but the nice other side of all of this is that we can change our microbiome within weeks if we're eating the right foods. And to me, just knowing all of these things is how many of those are happening for a child, and therefore how much intervention do we need to have to make sure they're getting back to having really healthy, diverse microbiome. So there's, the birth, health of the mother, and food definitely comes into it later, of the mother and the baby. I found this and it was kind of mind-blowing. And one of the really nice things is it fits with the peeing. So this was on a prostate cancer website that they've done this. What do we feed the microbiome with? So they're acknowledging that the prostate needs good food and anti-cancer needs good food. There's so many different things that we can, variety that we're so lucky that we've got now that we might not have had 50 years ago. And you don't have to have all of those. You can choose the ones you like. But the thing that's in common is fibre. So fibre feeds our good gut bacteria. And there's not a lot of sugar in there. Although it's very interesting order, so it's hard to find things. I don't know if sugar cane is on there, but as a whole plant, it would be fine. It's when we reduce it down to just being the sugar that it becomes an issue. So the sugar feeds your not so helpful gut bacteria and lots of yeasts in the body that, again, can just put us out of balance. Breast milk's on there, but again, we don't always get to choose that. So if you can't breastfeed, just finding other ways to get that microbiome up and going again. And also dirt's on there, so get your kids playing outside, feeds those good gut bacteria. Broccoli's at the top, and I don't go in for the whole, superfood thing, but if there was one, that's probably pretty up there. But, getting variety of colour, variety of types of foods is really important because that's how we stop our gut from being just surgeons and no cleaners. So for poo, we think of fibre mostly. We also need water, and good oil can help. But to grow well, to repair our bodies well, we're going to need protein as well. So making sure that we've got a bit of everything in there. But, if you've got constipation or diarrhoea, making sure that we're flushing things through with the water and the fibre. And good old olive oil can help, maybe not for the diarrhoea, but it can help for the constipation. So a drizzle of that if you can get it into some food. And getting to foods. It can be a battleground. This was from a lovely study done by a food company in the UK, but with a psychologist, just capturing all the different flavours and what faces kids made with them. And yes, we're going to get that a lot, so do keep trying different foods, even older kids than this, so 5, 6 year olds, you might think you've got them eating beautifully and all of a sudden they go, oh, I don't like that anymore. So keep working at it, even as adults we change what we like. And if you think about the first time you tasted olives or coffee or alcohol, did you like them straight away, or was it an acquired taste that took you a bit longer to get there? So just keep trying. A lot of the time I see picky eaters come in, so they're often the ones that have got digestive issues. They may be struggling with toileting. There are so many, whether it's taste, texture, smell, just the whole food thing, whether they've had an experience of a taste or a food that made them sick. There's so many different things to take into account. I've put in there a plant-based juniors website because in my sessions I can't cover every single possibility for how to present food or prevent food play, but they've got some really good ideas. I'll just do this really quickly. So a recent survey in New Zealand looking at, these are the size of servings of fruit and veg for kids. The veg on your left. So talking about having 2 to 5 servings per day, it's kind of shocking. You look at these two graphs of how many children are receiving the right amount. The fruit, 80%, it's fantastic. But you look at vegetables and it's down at 8% because the scale is so different on there. And what was really noticeable is there's no difference across the poorest people to the people living in wealth. So it's not cost that's getting in the way. And I really think it's our food environment. We're surrounded by convenience food that doesn't include the fruit and vegetables. So think about your home environment, your school environment, and what you can do to make that a bit more user-friendly. There. Oh. And just comparing cost, cherries. I think of those as the most expensive fruit, but actually similar price to lollies. So get rid of the kids menu. It's all the white food that we're trying to battle for kids. But we're constantly telling them that that's kids' food. Why do we do that? So hype up the colour and the texture and the fun of, making faces or having some fun with good food. Take charge of the shopping, being careful of the middle aisles where all the bluey things are and all the hyped. And again, taking time around food and explanation. Helping your child to understand what's important for them and the connection between their food and their health. I do see a lot of kids with food reactions, and that can be why they're struggling with weeing. It's still that kind of debated area, but there are ways to find out what's the problem and how to kind of manage them and shift away from those. It's also about straightening out that microbiome again so that the foods aren't such an issue. So again, no judgment. There's some families that have got beautiful foods that are really struggling with kids with digestion, and it may be a food such as kombucha that we think, yay, that's fantastic, but it's too much for that child and they've ended up with constipation. So taking that out, taking dairy out, and suddenly we've got a kid that's not hiding, happily going to the loo. And similar story, although, this one not so many vegetables, so upping the vegetables, actually happy to have them. It's the way we present them, talk about them. So encourage that exploration, understanding for your child what's going on inside, and start from an early age, talking to them. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was a bit rushed.